For everybody that's watching live, or the ones that are seeing the recording, this is the third session of Maximizing Event ROI. It's a webinar series. Previous sessions, the first, basically pre-event. How do you plan and promote like a pro? That recording is available. Last week, we covered driving attendance and the real-time insights, a lot of reporting. And today, we're going to be talking about follow-up that fuels revenue. Shout out to HubSpot, Happily and Growth, put together this great presentation and weeks of marketing and a lifetime of content around it. The whole goal is to help you being able to do events better. Let's do a little intro just in case people are only turning in to this episode.
Just in case people are only watching the last scene of the movie.
Well, I mean, this is the big part though, right? Like we're going to be talking a lot about what happens after the event.
Yeah, I did. This kind of reminds me of the time that I ruined all of Breaking Bad for myself because I accidentally watched the series finale before watching the rest of the show. Now I'm really disappointed because I can't watch the rest of it. But that's not the case for this. You guys can go back and watch episode 1 and 2. All right. And you just treat it like a Quentin Tarantino, the whole webinar series for yourself, right? Start if you had. Hey guys, I'm Max. I'm the chief evangelist over here at Happily. I'm the one that's the resident HubSpot nerd and super loud on LinkedIn about the apps that we're building. And super stoked to keep this conversation going. Yeah.
All right, Adam, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, what's there to know? Well, editor of Event Industry News, an event tech evangelist, and love all things events. So hopefully I drop a few nuggets of golden information here for everybody. And I'll also try and make sure that I keep my answers short and concise because I know we didn't necessarily get to everything last time. So
you did a great job. I mean, I picture you and having met you and learned about you just being this like warehouse of information for conferences and trade shows and leading the charge with Event Tech News, I think is the brand. Really about the technology that helps make all these things work. And it's exciting to see these events evolving and growing. There's just so much energy and soul that goes into them. I hate to see it wasted. I'm Chris Nault. I'm the founder and CEO of Growth. We're a consulting firm that helps companies take advantage of tools like Happily and HubSpot. So that way you can do what you do best and you can have us and our team of experts do the setup for you. Did that wrong. Today is session 3, follow-up that fuels revenue. We're going to hop into a bunch of very clever, things happen, clever questions related
to
the
first session was session 0, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Second was 1, here's 2. We're going on, it's floor levels in buildings. That's. I
have the appearance of someone that is flawless and obviously makes 0 mistakes. But first, it's now recorded and live for the world. Chris 1. Question number 1, how soon after an event should your sales team be following up to maximize conversions? We're coming straight out of the gate. This event has happened. Here's the setup. Boom, we had this trade show. Happily in Growth. We set up this booth at Event Tech in DC. It's amazing. We met all these great people. Do we start slamming them with phone calls 3 minutes after they walk off the floor? Do we wait a week? Do we wait 3 months? Adam, what's your gut say?
I think you just turn up at the doorstep before they even arrive back home with a gift box and some flowers. No. I'm going to bounce this question back to you to start off with, because I'm interested to hear what's your strategy for following up with people after this webinar?
I think there's 2 types of follow-up that's important to me. One should happen relatively soon. So if the event ends on a Thursday or a Friday, I would say that next Monday or Tuesday, just an acknowledgement of the connection and a willingness to connect. Keep it light. Don't add a bunch of stuff because you wouldn't if you were normally interacting with the person. And then a few days later, something that's a little bit more in depth and plus 1,000 if you're able to capture a little bit about that person and the company and why there needs to be some follow-up. So that way you're not drilling them with garbage. But I would say so right away, and then a little time because they probably have a life to reacclimate to, where you send them a more like succinct follow-up.
Yeah.
A week later.
I agree. I think something probably within 24 hours of you initially meeting that person. So that for me could be before the end of the event, just to say, great to meet you. and something that you remembered about that conversation, I think is important as well, so it doesn't look generic. And then you're right, giving people some breathing space. But I think I'm not going to jump in because I appreciate it's probably coming later in the rest of the conversation. But I think actually the second piece of contact is actually the more crucial and more one that you've got to get right in order to keep nurturing that conversation, that relationship from there. Because if you go too hard in that one, that's where people will kind of just shut down, I think, personally.
And I think there's also like kind of like two things here. Like there's the sales team doing a personalized follow-up of the people that they met, right? And then there is more of like the marketer kind of working on the behalf of the sales team, reaching out to people in a more generalized one-to-many manner, right? And I think the timing of that is super important, but also the context in which what you say, right, is also very important. Like I'm sure, Chris, you had that deluge of emails after Inbound of people saying, it was so great meeting you at Inbound. And you're like, I never went to your booth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, that's super weird. Right. But also like in terms of like the timing, I think there is that sort of, I don't know if there's like some kind of Goldilocks window in that, like, you know, when you got to remember the day after the event, just kind of assume that they're traveling. The day after that, kind of assume they're just getting back into their role, right? You know, whatever the first business day is after, right? And like, I think sometimes you might run the risk of giving them like that first initial reach out, and then it just says like, I'm traveling, I'm not responding to this, or man, I just got back into the office and I've got a bunch of fires I got to put out and stuff that I had to deal with that I didn't when I was gone. Not going to think about this. And then, you know, ADHD kicks in and they forget about that message you sent them, right? It's like, what's that sort of like calm zone where it's like, I've traveled, I've settled, I'm now, my brain is open to receive communication again, right? I don't know when that is. I just know that there's probably, that zone exists probably a couple of days after the event, but then you don't want to went too far, right? Because then it's like, I'm not even in the same mindset of having that conversation that I was just so jazzed about, right? So probably, you know, experiment with something at least 2 business days after, right? And I think you'll probably find a good little zone in there.
I think my strategy. Oh, sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to say one of the practices that we use with like account-based marketing is consistency too. So it's okay that you sent the, hey, great meeting you email, and the marketing team sends like the one with your logo on it. And thanks for meeting me. Click here for a demo. And maybe the second email with more information isn't the one that hits. Maybe it's 3 months later or 6 months later. So again, like authenticity, I talk about that just so much. Realize that all of these people have their own universes of priorities. And even though it was really great, maybe even in the moment, they're like, oh my God, we need this right now. Just be consistent with your efforts.
Yeah. Adam, I cut you off.
No, not at all. I think to Max's point, you know, that outreach, that follow-up, remember people are human. Remember they've gone through the rigmarole of travel and getting back into the work, and acknowledge that and be open about it and say, hey, listen, I don't know how you got on, but I'm absolutely shattered. It wiped me out. I had a hell of a trip back. How did you get on? I appreciate he's going to take you like 3 or 4 business days to get back into the swing of things. Is the following week a good time to kind of follow up with you? I'm available if you really want to go to that level. But just, I think, framing it that big and identifying and feeling their pain for them is also a good way to kind of go, oh, this person gets where I'm at, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to be much more likely to be like, yeah, sure, let's grab time if you're not trying to force it down my throat the second I get back. Right. And, you know, when I see that salesperson go like, oh yeah, they're, you know, pooped out too from having like all this travel in that crazy week we just had. Right. You know, like I'm going to look at them in a more human way other than it's like, man, they just wanted to get a demo on the calendar. Right.
Yeah. That's never a good feeling. It's a good lead in too.
Yeah. And that being said though, I do like Adam, that idea you had of like, maybe it's like the day the event's ending, right? And it's been like, you know, a week-long conference or whatever it may be. Like if you have personal people that like you met as a sales rep and had one-on-one conversations with, I do love that idea of being like, hey, hope you have a good flight home, right? Here's my meeting link when you want to grab time when it makes sense when you get back, and have it be very personal versus just like a big blast to people. I think that is super interesting because it's kind of letting them know like, hey, excited to continue the conversation when you get back, but I know it's going to be a minute until we can do that, right? You know, I think that makes a lot of sense, but I think that is something that definitely like sales reps kind of got to take the onus to do that. That's something a little bit more difficult to kind of orchestrate as a marketer doing a one-to-many, right? There are ways to do it, right? But usually people aren't organized enough to be able to like pull something like that off, right? But you can be. We'll get to that.
That's later. A good tie-in. Not everybody might be ready to buy, which brings us to our next question. What's your go-to method for identifying event leads who are truly sales ready?
I think
this is a spicy one.
I think it has to be good questioning, right? Like there's so much you can have. There's so many things you can have a conversation with somebody who you meet or visits your booth at a show that is actually nothing to do with your stand or what you're there to sell, but actually will give you a lot of context around why they're there and what their objectives and challenges are and what they're attending for. That could be like, hey, which other booths did you visit? What have you seen that's interesting? Did you attend any of the sessions? What education have you been to? What are you looking forward to? Kind of thing. Those are all going to give you intent signals because that's going to give you information on why they're there and what they're doing with their time while they're there. And that from that, then you can start to figure out like, oh, like I'm just researching such and such a topic. Okay, researching means they're probably a bit far out from actually buying at the moment. Or, oh no, we're kind of making final decisions on X. That gives you a different buying intent signal. For me, and actually it should be, as a great salesperson on a booth, you should be doing the least amount of talking.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm classically am always running a BANT assessment the first time I'm meeting somebody out in the wild. We're familiar, budget, authority, need, and timeline. And so it depends on, what booth I'm representing. But if growth had a booth, I'd be asking them, like, what are the problems right now? And it's figuring out what their job role is. What is the CEO like? And it can feel very natural, not as a bulleted list of questions, but I tend to know rather quickly whether this is a conversation that needs some pressure to keep moving or if this needs to be peel back. So good questions. That's the go-to method.
I think a lot of this too depends on the way that like leads are captured at an event and the nuances around it, right? Like, when we were when Happily did Camp Happily at Inbound, we had like hundreds of people fill out like our little form that we had in order to win a Yeti cooler. Were those people sales ready? No, they were ready to win a Yeti cooler. Right. And that's a very different thing than being a sales ready lead. Right. And so like, I think, there's a couple of things that you can do, like, because one, also it depends on like how you're defining sales ready. Right. Like, does that mean they're ready to see a demo, or are they ready and qualified to talk to sales to buy? Right. And like, oftentimes, unless you're gathering the right information to make that call, or maybe you've got, some AI enrichment stuff going on in the background that can help you get to the determination if someone is sales ready or qualified to be sales ready or whatever it may be, right? That's kind of hard to figure out. But like a very simple thing you can do is like, sure, like you'll have your activations that you're using to like kind of like capture leads that are like in your ICP and stuff like that. And, the giveaways and things like that we talk about. But like, I don't think there's anything wrong with like having a, exclusive sort of like form on an iPad or something saying like, hey, want a demo after the event? Right? You're here to enjoy yourself this week, but like, are you interested in this and you'll want to talk about it when you get back? Let's set it up. That's like a pretty explicit way to say, hey, we may not know if they're qualified. Maybe we can ask some questions or do some enrichment, but like these people at least explicitly said they wanted a demo after the event. Yep. Right. And like, I think it's okay to, not have to like hide marketing efforts behind some sort of giveaway, and just know it's like, yeah, dude, there are going to be people there that talk to you that do want to have a sales conversation, right? And do want to have a demo, and we don't have to like trick them into it by being like, you want this Yeti cooler? Oh, you want a demo actually? Right? Like, there are ways that we can just be honest about what it is that people are requesting and asking for, and giving them a route to that. And then it being much easier for us to identify who's actually demo ready or sales ready or however you want to call it.
I think it's great. I mean, the example that you gave with the Yeti cooler, I mean, nobody's going to go to the empty, quiet booth anyway and see what's happening. So it creates excitement. It does create, for Happily, you're still a relatively new brand. So like brand awareness, especially in a very specific place like a HubSpot conference, very clever move from you all. And I think you have to make it easy for the people that are ready to to deal with you to make that happen.
If I could just add one thing to this, though, if you're doing exhibiting strategy event marketing well, your booth, if you've got the opportunity to demo to people after the event, you should have meetings in your diary for the event for demos.
Yep.
Because if you've prospected that audience list well, and you've also used that event to attract and nurture the people that you've already been talking to, maybe they haven't had a demo, that's an opportune time to have the demo there face to face rather than Zoom.
Adam,
So
I wish you could have seen me at our booth last year. We were doing we had a big screen, right? And people would come up and they'd have conversations with me and I'd kind of talk them through it. But then what I would notice is as I would speak louder and louder, more people would start to gather around. And there's a point where you can see a photo of me on a soapbox, preaching to a crowd of 15 people about how easy it is to do events now in HubSpot. But it all started me giving me this one demo to this poor lady standing next to me. And then all of a sudden she was part of a sideshow. Right. And it's that. And I talked to Nikki about it. I was this year, I was is there a way we can turn the demo conversations that we have into content / an attraction? Right. And I don't think enough people kind of think about how can you demo someone, but at the same time turn it into a demo for others and be more impactful with that time you're spending on that conversation. But also then turn it into stuff after. Right. But yeah, I mean, some people might be sales ready there. And again, that's not going to work for everyone. Not everyone's going to be super stoked to do that. Right. But it's just something to think about.
100%. And there's different personalities too. So there's definitely people that are trepidatious about having those conversations publicly. And so just be aware of all the classic human things that we love to talk about because they're true.
I'm setting up a effing podcast booth at our booth this year, and I'm going to give demos, and they're going to have to put on headphones and talk into an SM7B to get a demo from me. That's what's going to happen.
Everybody's going to be super jazzed. Katrina's going to line right up for that.
They're going to love it. Yeah.
All right. Next question. What role should automation play in event follow-ups, and where should personalization take over? I mean, right out of the gate, I'm happy to start this one. Automation should be, like we were just talking earlier, kind of as if I had the intent to set this up for this conversation. The automation should be set up ahead of time and where you are in a place and have the mindset to move the ball forward, especially with the marketing email that Max described, that, hey, thanks for coming by email. Maybe even the trigger, depending on the software you use, for the sales rep, they have their list and their sales hub, and they're sending some messages, setting up the sequence. So 3 days, 10 days, 30 days, 45 days from now, there's at least a task for them to follow up, if not already a pre-scripted, mostly scripted email reply to send. So I would say, big role, and for when you should really be looking at that before the event kicks off.
Yeah. I think it should also be in place before the event kicks off and not be something that you set up after, right? I feel like the real big kind of goofy process that I see a lot of people do is they go, okay, we go to event, we gather leads, we get a list, and then we set up an automation that is simply sending an email with a first name personalization token to everybody. And that's what they call automation, right?
Yes.
But the other thing that you forget is that there's this super painful process that you go through to even get to that place, right? Where it's all right, I'm waiting for the list to come from the event. I'm gathering the fishbowl of business cards. I'm talking to every single person that was on the floor and asking them to tell me who they talked to. I'm going and looking at my list in HubSpot for the crude rudimentary form that I made for a form submission, and then you're putting it all together, and then you're figuring out all right, I'm going to send one blanket email to everybody, and then I'm going to figure out how to assign these people to folks, right? I'm not going to sit here and brag, but all of our stuff for inbound last year was done before people even walked away from the conversation. Okay. You can set this all up to where the point that someone is captured as a lead, right? So it's oh, let me grab your information, put some notes into the conversation that I had, right? Everything could be set up. The task could be created for the sales rep. They could go onto the right list they need for the automation email that comes afterwards whenever it ends up going out, right? Instead of having to just kind of figure it out when you get home, right? And so, like, in terms of the role it should play in making sure that, or the role it should play is make sure that the 24 hours to 48 hours after you get home from the event, as the person who's responsible for setting up all the follow-up, is not a giant nightmare, right? And it's just already kind of set to go. Like our, the meme I kept saying is like our lead automation follow-up was done before the planes even like hit the ground. In reality, it was done again, like as the prospect was walking away from the person that captured them as a lead, right? Like you can use HubSpot to do that. And then we have this lead capture mechanism that works really well with HubSpot forms. That makes it super easy for you to just have people that have HubSpot forms on their phones. They grab someone's email, they write in some notes about the conversation they had with them. And then you could do any sort of like lead routing you want in the back end, get them queued up for an email after the event, all that kind of stuff. It makes it like super easy. But again, we didn't have to do jack when we came home. It was already set up for us, right? Instead of playing this whole list game, right? Which is like a lot of people do. So anyway, yes. I just wanted to rant about that one. Make your life less painful with automation versus just having it send an email.
Yeah, Max didn't even go home. He just went straight to Mexico, sat on the beach for 2 weeks. And let the automation do the hard work.
Yeah. I actually came home and had COVID for a week.
Oh my god! I mean, that is a real thing that happens at these conferences. And Adam, last week we talked about personalization. First name token is, the most basic of them, but with this automation conversation and follow-up conversation, how much personalization and when and where does it fall into it?
And listen, to me, they are two very different things, but they do work together, right? Like we know they work together. So for me, actually, automation's great when those first, let's say, 3 or 4, maybe 5, half a dozen emails that's offering value back to that person, right? Hey, we've got this. I thought this might be helpful to you. Or we've got this report. We've got this data. We've got this tool. We've got this free, calculator, whatever that might be. Like those are great to automate because you can just let them trickle in the background. But for me, there should always be a question posed as every single one of those. So if that person responds, that's when a human takes over, the real person takes over, rather than it being automated, because then the question should be relevant or related to moving the needle forward in the conversation and getting that to a sales ready conversation, a demo ready conversation, whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's not enough that you can personalize, but you have to choose what you personalize very, very carefully.
Yes.
Because I think people use terms and generic things. I mean, one of my favorite personalizations when I automate stuff is calling people mate. Mm-hmm. So I don't actually call a lot of people that I know by their first name. I just call, hey mate, contacting you about this.
Hey, pal.
What do you think? Da-da-da. Yeah. And it's those little things that kind of make it seem a little bit less automated and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think, it depends on what kind of relationship or what kind of conversation you had with that person, right? I think Max can get away with it. Maybe Chris, you can't get away. I don't know. But it's like, that's the type of thing where I like to use those kind of personalizations to make it feel a bit more human and more natural.
All my emails after inbound are going to say, sup, bro, San Diego or San Francisco is pretty sick, right? I think the other
you
thing
stole my automations.
The other thing I want to add in here too is that I think you should think about how you automate the type of follow-up someone gets, right? Like, so for example, when we went to inbound, the type of follow-up that someone who should get if they're like a HubSpot customer interested in X product is going to be one of two things. The type of follow-up a partner would have gotten and who does it is going to be one thing. And then the type of follow-up that HubSpotters we met is going to be something different, right? We didn't want to send the same generic message to everybody because there's no way it would have resonated with everybody, right? And so we had a very simple question on our form that all of our employees had, that when they captured the lead, they were able to choose the type of person they talked to. I talked to a prospect. I talk to a partner, I talk to an employee, I talk to a whatever. And based on that, the automation that followed up, who got assigned, what emails were sent, what tasks were created, right? Changed depending on that one little bit of information that we had, where we could go give them the partner follow-up, give them the customer follow-up, give them the quote happily follow-up, give them the CEO personal love follow-up after, right? And again, we didn't have to like make sense of a giant list. It just knew what to do after the event happened, right? Based on what we told it to, right?
Can I pose a question? Because you guys know HubSpot and this kind of stuff. No, okay. I'll shut up then.
No.
How close do you think we are from, being able to voice note into a happily either straight after that conversation, or you're chilling at the bar after the event and you're kind of giving maybe an AI tool more context and more information about that conversation. It takes that and then it starts to tweak and personalize that follow-up based on everything that you've given it. So it is like it's automated, but it's personalized per person. Okay.
Yeah, I would recommend. I know you're not using HubSpot yet, and I hate to put you on the spot. That is definitely a great use case for the HubSpot app, taking a note, creating a voice note, and leveraging the Breeze tools. So you can create a workflow where this note's created, it can digest information, and it can spit out some language. And then I think that's a really great use and leads into some of the questions that we have a little bit farther down the trail here about how to use these tools. I want my salespeople having conversations and being excited and loving what they do and loving the work that we do. So that way, when we are showing up, the passion is expressed and the results are expressed. So but there's ways to do it.
Literally do that. You could literally do that now, right? Like it's like we have a property that we have on forums just called like event notes, right? Where it's just meant for you to like say, I talked to Adam about buying event happily and he really wants to get it. And then like that ends up going into like a lead object. So you know what the conversation was when you follow up with someone. But just like Chris said, you could take the output of that field, run it through an Ask Breeze action in a workflow, and then choose which path that person ends up getting for like follow up after. So like that's a today thing you could do.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
And you actually do a great job of saying, why is growth here? Because we deal with a lot of companies that are great at what they do and they have ideas and change that they want to make. And we are a change agent. So great idea, but you might need to talk through what exactly you're trying to have done. And then you having to do it on top of everything you're already doing may not work. So that's why people call growth.
Yeah. Is it going to be obvious on how to do that out of the box? Hell no. Is it possible? Yes. And this is why you bring partners into the conversation. Yeah.
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
This should be a quick question. Which metrics matter most when measuring event follow-up success? Obviously, pipeline generated. We know that. But are there any other important things, Adam, as you're doing consulting with companies that are going to these events?
Yeah, pipeline influence is another one that people often miss. Again, going back to my point of like, there's generally, if you're at the right events, there's generally a lot of people that you've already been talking to or aware of you or on your database or something that you're trying to move down the pipeline or move the conversation along. Everybody obviously knows meetings booked and things like that is a key performance indicator post-event and things like that as well. I think the sanity is the conversions of those leads to conversations, though. Like, how many of those people did we meet? Did we then have an actual proper conversation with? Open rates on emails and that kind of stuff. I think that's all vanity metrics, to be honest with you, because they don't necessarily mean dollars. I think the thing on this, though, that most people miss is they don't actually have those metrics mapped out as part of their event activation. They just go, they get the leads, they go into the CRM. They don't look at those metrics at any point after.
Yeah.
Right.
Or they don't store a lot of the information in the same place to be able to come up with that metric. And so they give up on even looking for it. But Chris, sorry, I cut you off.
No, just what we're talking about right now really ties into the first session. That's Event HQ, Event Ops, home base for all of your information. Because without it, what like really inspired me to lead this series is having experienced all of this excitement and energy going into having an event, and then it falling completely flat afterwards because all these tools and automations and nothing happened. And so my hope is that at least one person has watched at least a few seconds of these videos and is inspired to take some action so they do not experience the heartbreak that is you standing in an empty floor with nothing happening.
Yeah.
It's the worst. So just to kind of summarize, the metrics that matter obviously influence pipeline. I think net new contacts and net new contacts that might be opportunities, but we should all be brand building a little bit, especially if we're, smaller, even mid-sized companies. There's probably a bit of like, hey, you never heard of us before. I think that's an important metric. I also like to see kind of like off topic because I'm a marketer at heart, but like, is there a unique spike in website traffic? Like, are people actually going back to the site? And all those things can be tracked in your CRM. Ideally, a CRM that also has a hub for marketing, perhaps.
Yep. I think the other one that I want to throw in there too is like maybe some of the not so obvious stuff, right? Because like people go to events for different reasons. Like, for example, like a big reason we go to Inbound is we want to generate conversations with new partners, right? And it's like that isn't necessarily something that has a dollar amount associated to it, right? And so like you got to kind of think is like, what are ways you can track that? And a lot of the times I think when people go to events to create human connections, it's often because they're trying to create an additional human connection that happens after the event of a certain type, right? Yeah. Like, and an easy way to kind of track this is like, if there's certain types of conversations you're trying to book, sure, maybe it's a demo, but maybe it might be something different. Maybe like, it's something like a job fair and you're trying to generate interviews for people to come work at you, right? Or, it's you're in some sort of partner motion and you're trying to generate types of conversations to happen. Those types of conversations are super easy to track in HubSpot, right? Like you can customize call and meeting types and say like, hey, we wanted to drive X amount of partnership pitches after the event, and then assign a dollar amount of what we spent to the event to how much each one of those calls we generated cost us, right? Like this is all stuff you can do in HubSpot because the data's all there and it talks to each other, right? But like I would encourage people to like, it's not always just, a lot of the time it is dollar amount generated from deals and stuff because that's what people go to events for. But like, don't be afraid to think outside of the box. And just because we're talking about ROI, return doesn't always have to be a dollar sign, right? And think about creative ways to track those metrics with the data you have available to you in HubSpot, right?
Yeah. Educate that CFO. Here's one of my favorite questions. What's your favorite tactic for ensuring sales actually follows up on event leads?
If they don't, they lose their job.
We use tasers. Yeah, we use tasers. No, well, first is like the baseline. This is going to be a classic Chris answer is you have to go into these events with a pre-established company culture where that doing the work and doing it the work inside the CRM is just a native instinct. Like there's a passion for doing it. So that's a complicated answer. But for growth and for the clients that we work with, we are very strict about if it didn't happen in HubSpot, it didn't happen. And so that really helps leverage the automation tools, the transparency. So that's my favorite tactic is create a culture of the work getting done and celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, Adam, go ahead. And then you're gonna.
I love those.
I think you have to break this into 3 sections, right? Just incentivizing or creating tactics about follow-up post-event. You've already missed 2 opportunities to move the needle there. You should be doing something with your sales team pre-event. So that's going to be like most people responded, most meetings booked on site, most partners booked in, whatever that looks like. Then there should be the actual event itself, and there should be metrics and tactics around that and the success there. And then there should be post-show, because if you get those first 2 right, that'll make the last one, the follow-up, really, really easy. And then I would also say you need to make individual kind of benefits and team benefits. So there's something that everybody's working together there, whether they come top of the leaderboard on any of those things or not, if you're kind of making it a competition or you're kind of incentivizing money, holidays, whatever that might be, everybody becomes part of the success. So everybody's trying to work together to get some sort of reward and leverage that as well.
I appreciate a team mindset for these things. We view events as games. So, I mean, I'm very, very much with that.
I was going to say, gamify it as much as you can, right? I'm not going to share my screen here just because I don't want to mess up the presentation, but like we built using a single object report on an event object, we built a leaderboard for inbound where as people captured leads, we were literally able to see in real time who captured the most leads, right? And like we were all like racing against the Yeti thing basically, right? But like it is easy to gamify stuff in HubSpot, whether it is something just as simple as like creating a wall of shame of like, hey, Max had all these leads assigned to him, but it hasn't actually reached out to him yet. And then you don't want to be at the top of the wall of shame. Right? You can easily do that. But there are also like apps out there that you can get that will literally gamify your HubSpot data, right? There's one in particular called Outbound Game. If you haven't heard of it yet, is by these guys from Australia, Steve and Darcy, who are like sales trainers, and they literally built a gamification app that runs off of HubSpot data. And so like you could literally make it's like whoever fills out whoever like reaches out to the most event leads and books the most deals gets like a free iPhone, or I don't know. Like you can literally build in like winning prizes for doing stuff in That's HubSpot. Cool. But like events are special occasions and there's like a lot of camaraderie around the team and all that kind of stuff. So like while I wouldn't recommend always having some sort of gamification stuff like 24/7 365 because that can get toxic, I think it's okay to introduce it a little bit for like special events such as big trade shows your team's going to, right? And like how you keep that energy going afterwards, right? So gamify your HubSpot data. That'll incentivize them just a little bit.
I love that. I mean, amen to everything.
Yes.
Okay. This one's for you, Max. How can event-specific tools like Happily or your CRM help you avoid common follow-up pitfalls? Questions here.
Yeah. So specifically to like we're talking about like specifically to like after the event, right? The biggest things that I see people get caught up a whole lot with is one, I have no way of proving ROI of the actual event, right? And then two, the other one that we hear all the time is, generally, man, I've got this giant list of leads and I have no idea how to like bring it into HubSpot and be able to say, these people came from this specific event, right? Because there wasn't really a easy, believe it or not, there's no like easy mechanism to do that besides building lists over and over and over again. And that is not a good experience for anyone if you want to be able to go to a contact record and see an event someone was met at, right? So we got a couple of different things here. So like one, we've got workflow actions that will literally automatically associate deals back to your events based on like your own sort of model you create, right? So
it's a big one.
It really makes it easy because like, just like, what are you doing to like tie events back to deals, right? Are you like hitting up your sales rep being like, hey guys, if you have any deals of someone who like went to this event, well, how do I know if they went to this event? I don't know. Just ask everyone you're talking to, or if they're on this list, I don't want to take time to look at that list. Okay, well, maybe I'll just look at your deals. I'll just sift through everything and see if any of the names seem for that sucks, dude. And that's what like everyone's doing, right? Yeah. Whereas it's like you could literally just run a single workflow action that'll do all that for you. You know what I mean? So we've got a really cool, mechanism that does that. It just looks at the contacts, analyzes their event history, automatically associates deals back to events, and that lets you do some like really, really creative, real-time ROI reporting like on your records with some simple calculated fields, right? So like that's one big piece. The other thing is the like event lead capture tools that we have, right? So we have, again, very simple workflow action that says when someone fills out a HubSpot form, based on some hidden information in the form that you don't really need to think about, we can tell which event that they were met at. And when you go look at your events in HubSpot, you will see contacts associated to the event with the label of event lead, right? And they'll automatically be in there, right? So it's like create the event, give everyone the form link, they go capture leads at the event. The leads are just in there attached to that event. You're done. Instead of like, oh, I got to collect everyone's business cards from the fish bowls, or I got to go ask people who they met, or I got to go wait for the list of the event that the event's going to send me and then upload it and then figure out how to combine it all and then somehow be able to say, hey guys, you're the event. No, dude, just have it done the second you capture the lead, right? Yes. So we've got mechanisms for that specifically to just avoid the hours and hours and hours of making sense of what just happened with all these different data inputs that you have after an event, right? That's what we try to like get you to avoid in the simplest way possible. So like Event Happily can help in many different ways, right? And all of this is informed by trauma that I personally had dealing with marketers setting up the marketing hub that said, hey, I just got back from this event and I've got no idea how to attribute these leads. Or, hey, we're trying to, capture this, but it's all just going into a list somewhere. Or I've got this giant list of deals and I need to be able to like, associate them to companies and figure out which event they came from. And it's like, nah, it's terrible. And so we just built tools to solve all that kind of stuff. So if this resonates with anybody, you should really be looking at Event Happily. Anyway, sorry.
Trauma sharing is trauma bonding. I feel your pain, man.
Event Happily is a trauma-informed app, is what I'll say, for HubSpot. So, yep. Very cool.
Does any of this resonate with you, Adam? Is there like maybe other tools or
have you been that person that I'm screaming about right now, Adam?
I actually haven't, but I feel the pain because, one of the painful part for me as an event organizer is I know this stuff happens, right, with our exhibitors. So, and that becomes part of the challenge as an event organizer, as a trade show organizer, to help understand or to at least trust that the company is going to effectively act on all of those leads and the value and the investment that they made. And some people are great, don't get me wrong. Like at Event Tech Live, we have some exhibitors who are very, very sophisticated in their lead follow-up. And they are the large companies. There's no doubt about that. They've grown off that basis. But there's so many that kind of don't even do what Max has been just describing. And that's the biggest challenge for us as an organizer. So, for me, it's kind of like, right, I'm already starting to think in my head, like, how can we help support our organizers do some of what Max has just said there? Some of our exhibitors do what Max has just said there to help them follow up more effectively, have a better time at the event, makes them an easier customer to return to the event.
Boom. Magic. Next question, everybody. What's the most surprising or effective way you've seen AI enhance post-event engagement so far? And Adam, this kind of falls on the back of what you were saying earlier. It would be great to be able to take notes on the conversation, 10, 15, 30 seconds worth of what that conversation was, have it attached to the contact of the company record, then have that inform that follow-up. And I think that's a very actionable tool here. One of the things...
And I think the technology is already starting to trickle out for us to be able to do this as well when it comes to recording conversations on the fly without having to then do it after the conversation, actually capturing the conversation. Now, there's some privacy concerns and some change in behavior and things that I think we need to see coming. But I've got a personal AI assistant that records my conversations, so I can look at those afterwards. We've just seen OpenAI announced that they're coming out with a wearable in 2026, probably. So that's going to be, I assume that's going to start to get contextual information about the conversations you're having. I think that plugged into a platform like HubSpot and Happily are really going to augment the information that we collect in a trade show or an event environment. Maybe you don't use it and record the conversations you're having at the bar afterwards when you're like 10 pints deep. Maybe that's the wrong place to record those conversations.
I like your story.
But I
think your style.
I think in that B2B business environment, I think it's acceptable. You're having conversations about business stuff. People, everybody knows they're there to do business. But I will give one shout out to a piece of tech that we use at Event Tech Live called Voxo AI. Now, we've recorded all of our content at Event Tech Live probably for the last nearly decade of the event. Every single session we've recorded and put it on demand. For this last edition, we sent every session through Voxo, which is AI transcription, and it automatically generated 2 documents for every session, a deep dive and a key takeaway. We saw mammoth engagement with that post-event by attendees, which actually for the people that delivered those sessions is huge amounts of value because people were downloading them, saving them. We could see them sharing them with colleagues and things like that. And actually, I think that, today that's what we want. We kind of just want the highlights and then we want the deep dive. If we want to go back into it, I'm not sure we actually necessarily, especially the amount of content that we produce at Event Tech Live, want to sift through, 100+ sessions of an hour-long content to find the golden nuggets kind of thing. Maybe they do after they see these key takeaways. They'll go, right, I'm going to deep dive into this session because this is worth my time now. But that's the thing that I've seen post-event engagement rocket for us was transcribing all the sessions and creating those documents for people.
I mean, how often are you seeing companies staff their booth with team members with wearables these days? And do you see it increasing?
I'm not seeing that much of it, but I think it will rise rapidly as people realize the value of capturing those conversations contextually and being able to use that to follow up effectively and give more context around the conversation. But I will caveat that not everybody's going to be comfortable with that technology coming in initially, because people might feel it's an invasion of the privacy, or that they don't want it to be permanent, that it exists forever somewhere kind of thing, and they don't have a way to kind of get rid of that. So yeah, I think we need to see how that rolls out. I think there'll be some resistance by some people to start off with, but then I think it'll just become ubiquitous because people have become used to it.
Another really effective thing I've seen in the post-event engagement is around talking to people that you didn't meet, but that also worked for the company. And so that's tying the contact record to a company. Let's say, hey, I meet Max, but I really want to talk to Dax or Connor. Being able to pull in the who else in this company based on job title. And then you can drop a very friendly LinkedIn request where it's like, hey, man, I met Max at Inbound. He was awesome. He recommended I reach out to you or something like that. Helping you get additional buy-in, especially if you're selling a dongle or a service where you need executive sponsorship for buy-in. It's a really nice way to go one layer deeper. It doesn't take long at all. You can use a tool like Apollo or Clay to enrich data and or chart hub, I think it's called, inside of HubSpot. Nice. Anytime I've received that, and it is nice to see that level of effort from a company that's looking for me to buy something from them. Undone well.
On the topic of the AI stuff post-event, I'm going to give a big shout out to another app ecosystem company. They're not HubSpot like specific. They're CRM agnostic, but it works really well with Event Happily, which is really cool. It's this company called Mobily, and Mobily does event. Yeah, these guys are awesome. So they do event lead capture, but it's instead of like punching the information into a form, you actually just scan someone's badge, right? It's like you take a picture of their badge, it scans it, it runs a bunch of enrichment on it to figure out who that person is. And it grabs a bunch of information from typical sources you would do enrichment from. I mean, you can name them all. I'm sure they pull from a number of different places, but it does all that enrichment and then it injects it into your CRM, right? So if you have like automation already set up, you can use this additional information it supplements them with instead of having to awkwardly ask a bunch of questions to like understand the information that you need, right? You could use that additional information that it enriches it with before it shoots it into the CRM to then kind of send them down these different, more personalized paths, right? Because like you might have one for someone in this industry, another for someone in this job role, whatever it may be after the event. But it's good because like you can get that extra information you need through the enrichment without, making that conversation less ergonomic, right? And that lead capture less ergonomic by having to type stuff versus just taking a picture of a badge. So that's pretty sick. And it works great with Event Happily too. We've actually like worked together to like set up the integration. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really, I've seen them.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how it tied in.
Yeah, it's neat. Adam, what are you saying?
I would also say, I don't think we're that far away from people being able to place a camera on their booth, for it to look at the badge of somebody on your booth, ping the CRM, bring any contextual information back to the people that are stood on the stand, so that they can either get them to the right person because somebody else on the team's been speaking to them, or it can at least tell you what conversations and things like that had happened in the past, or even if they're a customer. You might have a big company.
Sounds like that movie Minority Report. Do you guys remember that? It's like all of a sudden you get a little dig in your ear. It's like, yo, this person's about to buy some shit. We can tell.
Also, did you just beep yourself? That was great.
I did.
Oh my god. I mean,
I've got a lot of sound effects.
It's obvious that AI is going to empower this, and with the right software, but really for the salespeople, like how much easier is it to have conversations that are like authentic and engaging and helpful, where you're not like, What time are you available at 3:00 on Friday, the 24th? That's such a weird energy.
Cringe.
All right, we got a couple more. Let's see if we can. I might have to skip some. Let's see what we got. Let's try this one. What's one follow-up mistake that you've seen marketers repeatedly make that hurts pipeline growth? Like repeatedly.
Ooh, I can tell you one that's hit me a couple of times as an event organizer is the marketers attributing all the leads generated at my event to another event.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's happened more than once.
Yikes.
Yeah.
It's just the for me, it's and I kind of mentioned it earlier, but it's like, it's so emphatically saying something happened that didn't happen, right? Like the whole, we loved meeting you at the booth. You didn't meet me at the booth, dude. Right. And it's like, it shouldn't be that difficult to be able to isolate those people where you know that that is a demonstrative truth that you actually met them at the booth. Right. Like if you get a list from the event, you don't know if you met them at the booth. If the list came from a form submissions that were unique to the actual people at the booth, pretty good chance you met him at the booth, right? And like even further, if you have some way to confirm on the form, met him at the booth, like there are ways to figure that out so you can avoid awkward email interactions afterwards, right? Dude, it was 6 months after inbound, I was getting emails like this. And it's just
that wine company. Do you remember that?
I think we're talking about the same. It just seems so desperate and impersonal, and it's just like nothing screams to me that you don't actually care by like very matter-of-factly claiming that something happened that did not happen, right? And I know it's marketing and like things are going to happen like that, but it's just like when you're trying to tell me a different reality that actually took place, I'm not going to take you seriously, right? And so that's just a big one for me.
Big on authenticity too. And for me, the biggest follow-up mistake is not staying consistent and engaging over longer periods of time. It's okay to not get a response. It doesn't mean they hate you or you did anything wrong. It's likely that they're busy and the world keeps turning, right? So yeah, I alluded to this earlier. A lot of our account-based marketing, the idea is getting in front of them as a brand and then constantly having your hand up in a non-creepy, aggressive way where it's like, when it comes that time and you need help with X, I'm the master at X, not want to help. And so that's the biggest thing is you give up too quick. Don't be pushy. Don't be aggressive. Don't spray them down with tons of resources every day. But it's surprising how much pipeline can be built 2, 3, 6 months away from the event versus day 3 after the event.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
All right, we're going to have one more. I know Amber's got a couple of questions queued up for us. How do we track and report event-driven pipeline to leadership with dashboards? Next.
Yeah.
What's one specific? Hey, AR.
Email that dashboard to him.
Email.
Report view receipt.
Auto
easy.
All right, let's skip this one too because we talked. What innovative follow-up strategy have you seen recently? Innovative follow-up strategy. I can kick it off. Somebody was leveraging a tool called Sendoso, and so they were sending really great swag after the fact. It was like, I do a lot of farmers market stuff. I understand I'm a hippie. So it was like a really nice canvas bag, and I use it every Monday and Tuesday to get my vegetables. But it also gave me a chance outside of the event. I think it came like 2 or 3 weeks later. The packaging was great. There was like a handwritten letter. We're still in conversation, and we haven't used it for our company, but we've referred them business from our clients. So that was great.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. The little personal stuff, especially if it's something physical, is cut through all the noise of every other email and stuff that person's probably getting from that event as well, right? If they've been active on a number of booths and things like that. So even just something small like a handwritten letter or a card or a little piece of something delivered to them, especially for your high value targets, I think it's worth going down that extra mile for sure.
Yeah. I think for anyone that like does the whole like attending trade shows thing, especially if you have a show that happens every single year, right? I think being able to like effectively, queue up some kind of experience or some kind of engagement with people you met the year prior, instead of just the generic like, hey, are you coming to this like random like event, to like people that you never met at the event, right? Like I think there's certain ways that you can kind of target those people. That's like, hey, we met them at the event last year, right? Is there some sort of like special experience we can create for them to get them to engage with us again this year, or to share with their friends, or to like encourage other people to come like stop by? Are you like signing them up for some sort of like side event that you're doing, or whatever, like some other sort of experience or activation that happens outside of the event, whatever it may be, but like really trying to hone in on those people that are going to be there because you met them last time this happened in the year prior, right? Versus, again, treating those people the same way as you're treating like anyone that just might be going to the event because they showed up on a list somewhere, right?
Yeah. All right, fellas, that wraps up the questions that I presented to you, and then I think Amber's got a couple. I just want to make sure that we have time for them. How's that sound? Maybe if Amber's there. What's the best way to convince my sales team to use Happily or CRM generated event leads? I love the taser.
Give them something specific to go on. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. Like, the worst thing I think you can do is say, here's a lead. It's a person we met at the event, and give zero context whatsoever. Right.
Yeah.
Like, it is so important. And this is like why we have that like event lead capture notes field, right? Like, when you are presented as a salesperson, maybe you were at the event, and it's even worse if you weren't at the event and you're the person in charge of following up with these people, right? For the love of God, pass on some context to the conversation that was had. Or it's okay to say, this person, signed up for a sweepstakes, so you're going in blind, buddy. Let them know that, because if I know I'm going in blind, I'm going to approach that person differently than I know they had a conversation with Dave about system XYZ that we sell, right? And so it's just like, I'm going to be much more, I'm not motivated. I'm going to feel more comfortable following up on leads when I have a little bit more to go on than, oh, this person was there, therefore it deserves a follow-up from me, right? Yeah. So it's like, sure, you can incentivize them all you want. It's their job to capture all these leads, things like that. But I think they're going to attack it with a little bit more thought and care, and feel a lot less of like, oh, this kind of sucks that I got to awkwardly reach out to these people with zero context. If you just give them a little bit of context as to how they should follow up with them and what happened at the event, if you can, right? And there's easy ways that you can do that. Sometimes jump is just as simple as a single line text field on a form to say what you talked about, right? Give them at least that.
God, I love your enthusiasm. We've got time for one more question. Let's knock that thing out. See what we got. Excellent one. How much does Happily cost? And what's the pricing structure?
Yes. So
what a way to wrap up hours of spending time together. Let's hit it with the brass tacks.
Let me double check this. So our pricing did just change. I think we're $6,499 a year, but let me just, I'm not the sales guy. So let me double check that so I don't say something out of turn here.
Everyone's in sales, Max.
$649.99 a year. So $6,499 a year. But talk to Joe. He's a sales guy. They do. He knows how to negotiate, right? But we're a yearly tool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that covers an implementation fee, or is there an implementation fee that's?
I think there's an additional implementation fee there too. But there's also there's a partner coming in to help you with it, like that can change, right? Totally.
Well, it's important. So, I mean, it's daunting task to take what is today and see a future and then build the future. So Growth is a Happily partner. We, I believe, have done 30-ish implementations specifically on Event Happily. So we'll do the hard work. You've got the ideas. Write the check to Joe. Trickle down effect.
You got it. Write the check to me. Venmo me.
Thank you. Thank you, Max. Please swipe left and or whatever.
Just Venmo me like $70. I'll unlock a demo account for you.
I'll unlock a demo.
Gotta know about it.
I am so thankful Max is a wild wild man. Now, I really appreciate both of your time and everybody that's joined us online or live for the event. We want to help you do events better. So if you're interested in a demo or you just want a consultative session to understand the tools and techniques or whatever, I'm available. Max is available. We will be using happily automation throughout our follow-up with you all. So there'll be plenty of links and things. Hopefully we followed all the rules and best practices that we described over the course of the last 3 hours and 3 weeks. But Adam, man, this is my first time really having a chance to collaborate with you. You are insanely smart. You have so much experience. I'm really excited for what comes next with, this trifecta superpower group we brought in. Thank you.
I'm in good company, but likewise.
Awesome.
Max.
See
you next week,
man.
baby.
This is great.
Tuesday.
I feel like I got to scream a little bit. I got to learn a whole ton. I got to talk with some people that actually know things about managing events instead of me just listening to marketers complain about it. Right. So this was educational for me too, as well. Loved it.
Hey,
and
man.
kind of therapeutic a little bit.
A little bit therapeutic.
Maybe?
Yeah. Screaming into the mic to people who understand what I scream about is nice. I feel heard.
That's what it's all about. And thank you, HubSpot, for sponsoring this series. Look forward to seeing you at an event soon.